All right, we are live on YouTube. Today is Thursday, August 5th, and this is our weekly developer check-in meeting. Before we get into the agenda, let's do some quick introductions. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining us from sunny Oakland, California. I have mentally checked back in from the last meeting because Luke and Tim got me very excited about configuration management. Thank you guys. And I'm going to turn it over to Nate.
Hello, my name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm the backdrop core committer, and it's August. That's the month of code freeze. So we're creeping up on 1.20.
What?
Yeah, I know, it's news and news, right? Let's go to Luke.
I'm Luke McCormick, coming from you inside of Van Gogh Painting, which is itself in San Ramon, California. I'm an occasional developer and product manager and muse. I'm here to suggest things for other people to do and then run away. Jen.
I started.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Justin.
Justin Christopherson. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I just come to contribute to the infrastructure if anything's needed. And I'll pass it over to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim in Deerwood, Minnesota. And yeah, just really, really busy right now with a lot of different things. So here to watch and see what other people are doing, but I don't know if I have too much time in the next week. I'm surprised to hear that we were in the deadline the last few weeks of development for this, so I should try and make some time so I can help get some things into the next version. That's it, right? We got everybody.
Yep.
All right. I just checked our contrib queue and wanted to say that over the past few weeks, we have a couple of new contributors, which is great. And in this past week, one of them has published their new module to Backdrop Contrib. So it's pretty exciting. Nothing else of note going on this week. So why don't we turn it over to Nate to pick up forum topics? Is that okay?
Yep, sure thing. So forum topics, what we've been doing recently, every week we post a forum topic to forum.backdropcms.org. Under the events and meetups, there is an item for each weekly meeting, and we solicit suggestions for topics that we can discuss during these weekly meetings. There were 2 suggestions this past week, one from Indigozala, one from Herbduel. Thank you guys for using that forum for this purpose. That really helps aggregate the kinds of things that that we should talk about without having to dig through the Zulip chat logs. So let's see, the first question from Herbduel is related to issue 1678. The quick title of that issue is long, but when an anonymous user submits a form with an unupload file that leads to a validation error, the file is lost on the next correct submission. So that title does accurately summarize exactly what occurs. And there's a pull request in 1678. Herbduel asked this question on Tuesday, and I think by today, I think he actually figured out the problem individually. So it might not be truly necessary that we recap the entire thing. But his sub question that he had within this forum post was, how important is it that we confirm that a test fails before adding the patch? So what this situation is being resolved by finding an equivalent 777 patch. It turns out this has already been fixed, that we had a shared regression and Drupal has fixed it, and we just have yet to port the patch. And so no longer Herbduel has ported the patch and it's passing the tests, and it looks like it solves the problem as well. And the question, how important is it that we confirm a test fails before adding the patch? I would say that's pretty important. Like if there is a bug that we have discovered that does not have test coverage, if it's feasible to add test coverage, we should add a test that fails, without the fix, and then run the test again with the fix and ensure that it's corrected. I think that should be our standard policy on anything that is feasible to test. It just happens that because we don't have any tests that run JavaScript in the browser, we have some things that are untestable because we still don't have browser-based testing. And in those situations, like, we make exceptions because there's no other way to test it. In this case, though, it turns out that the test is, or the actual problem is reproducible with JavaScript turned off. And so this is a great situation where, yes, we should add test coverage. All of this may be moot, though, because Herbdul already fixed the problem, has already written the tests, and has already gotten everything working so that this can all basically be reviewed and merged. So a little late on the answer there, but yeah, I think that everything has kind of reached resolution already. I think that comprehensively answers that question. I hope so. If not, I'll keep an eye on that issue. I did go ahead and take it out of the milestone candidate and put it into the 119.3 milestone to help surface it a little bit more. Let's see, the next issue that was brought up in the forum posts was issue 4392 that was proposed by Indigozala. She wants to have an option to skip the MyISAM conversion when running tests. And this issue fits into a much larger picture of we want to use GitHub Actions to run our test suite. And on newer environments, say that run MySQL 8, for example, or PHP 7.4 and higher, MyISAM is a deprecated storage system for MySQL systems, and the MyISAM conversion no longer works on newer versions of MySQL. And so issue 4392 is proposing an option to skip the MyISAM conversion so that we can run the tests on these newer environments by skipping that. The downside is Indigozala benchmarked the MyISAM conversion, like, with and without running it, and it's really substantial. It's like a difference of like 3 times as fast if you do the MyISAM conversion. So it's a matter of like running a test in 2 minutes or running it in like 7 minutes. So like a really, really big difference there. Unfortunately, like, that's a really big difference, but one that we can't really count on. If it's already become an issue with current versions of MySQL that MyISAM is deprecated and we can't convert to it anymore, even with the performance benefit that converting to MyISAM has, I don't think that it's a safe default to be converting to MyISAM by default when it doesn't work on pretty much all new installations of Backdrop on new operating systems. So the question we have in this one, Indigozala has a pull request, works great. It adds a flag to make it so that you can skip the MyISAM conversion. And now we're in a little contest of naming things. Indigozala's patch is definitely the most straightforward approach. It just adds a flag that then sets an argument that is called skip MyISAM. This argument already exists, and she surfaces it to the run tests.sh script as a flag. So it's -- skip MyISAM. My suggestion is to do the inverse of that, and instead of saying requiring somebody to skip my ISAM, instead have the option be convert my ISAM, so that you have to turn it on explicitly rather than turning it off explicitly. There's a follow-up suggestion that I have there that there is a kind of, we'll call it the new MyISAM in newer versions of MySQL called ARIA. And ARIA has the same kind of limitations of MyISAM. It doesn't support row level locking, for example, but it also has the same kind of performance optimizations that MyISAM has. It's not quite as good, but there's some benefit to it. And this also makes me think that I don't want to tie ourselves to a command line option that is called MyISAM, when that only applies to old versions of MySQL, and new versions of MySQL would use convert ARIA, for example. And so I think it would be preferable if we had two flags, convert MyISAM and convert ARIA, as two flags to convert into two different database schemas. But neither one of them was on by default. So it would be like, by default, it's compatible but slower. And if you turn on the option to have the less compatible option, it runs faster. That way, running the tests locally is easier for people that haven't set this up before. And for running our own tests, we can turn on all of the optimization flags that are specifically tuned to the GitHub Actions environments. That's what I would prefer to see. But I'd love to hear what other people have to say in that issue. It's issue 4392. I think Indigozala is taking a very prudent approach, however, which is she's trying to find the fastest way forward. And it's possible, even likely, that what she's done is probably the fastest way forward. I'm just a little bit worried that it's not very forward looking. So those are the two issues from the forum. I hope those are comprehensively answered. Thanks to both of you for filing those suggestions. The MyISAM conversion is kind of a child of this larger issue about switching to GitHub Actions that I'd love to continue to talk about. That issue is 4753. Indigozala has filed the pull request to make GitHub Actions YAML file to set it all up, has tested running it. The biggest hurdle that we have there's the MyISAM conversion. Yeah, that's one part of it. But there's a second issue, which is 5126, that is another environment specific problem with our tests. The title of it is now Bootstrap page cache test fails in mod proxy Apache environments. And so 5126 is an issue that Backdrop's page cache isn't actually implementing the HTTP spec correctly. And so when you have a proxy in front of Backdrop, like mod proxy in Apache, that does implement the HTTP spec properly for cache control, that Apache responds in the correct way because the request never gets back to Backdrop, but Backdrop's tests are expecting the wrong result. So Backdrop's tests test the wrong HTTP spec and checks to see that Backdrop is behaving in the wrong way. And so what happens when you try to run a test that has something in front of Backdrop that implements it the right way, the test fails because the test is expecting the wrong result. And so the issue 5126 is all about fixing Backdrop's cache handling, the cache control in particular, the cache control header in particular, to make it so that it implements it correctly, and then it behaves the same whether it's a proxy in front of Backdrop or Backdrop itself handling it. And sorry, it's not actually the cache control header, it's the last modified header. I think that's what it is. So anyway, those two issues, the cache or the last modified header issue 5126 and the my Isam conversion 4392 are effectively blockers for switching to GitHub Actions, which is 4753. And so we need to work backwards through all of those issues to make the switch over to GitHub Actions. As time has gone on, we've now been talking about switching to GitHub Actions for probably 2 months now. I'm increasingly of the opinion that that is the right way to go. I think maybe I'm just saying this as industry trends that in my own work and with people that I'm communicating with, like GitHub Actions is where it's at. There's so many people that are using GitHub for their projects. GitHub Actions is very quickly becoming de facto standard for open source projects, and I feel like going with the flow is a good idea for us, that it'll be the tool that people are most familiar with that provides the most functionality at the lowest cost.
I have a question. Who are our GitHub Actions experts at the moment? It's Indigozala and do you remember?
Let's see.
It's fine if you don't. I just thought you might have known because I saw the work happening on that issue and thought you might.
Sounds like the kind of thing BW or Panda would be involved in, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, BW Panda has set up all of the tugboat stuff, so I'm sure that he's capable of setting up GitHub Actions. It's very similar. It's continuous integration work.
The problem is the weird, like, non-existent GitHub documentation and the weird, like, automatic stuff that they provide. Like, I think when you are saying, okay, ignore everything GitHub does, just run all of my own stuff. Like, for example, we're running all of our own tests, right? Like, we're not leveraging any of this stuff from the GitHub store or whatever, I forget what it's called, in order to do that. But there's a lot of stuff that I think we would benefit doing actions from that does use all of this other stuff that's provided. And I just didn't know if anyone in our community had experience with that yet. So I was going to reach out to them.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing that provides us some opportunities. The GitHub Marketplace, I think it is, for GitHub Actions is a place where anyone can write an integration into GitHub Actions, and then any project can turn on that one integration. And it's possible that that would be a really great entry point for running contrib tests, that contrib modules would just say, turn on the backdrop marketplace integration for running integrated test for my contrib module. And that would be a way of quickly setting up GitHub Actions to run tests on their repositories. It's possible, though, that we also could just provide that, a basic implementation that worked for all contrib modules, but it probably, some contrib modules will probably need specialization, like if they need to download a third-party library or something like that in order to run the tests.
Yeah, I mean, even on Drupal, you opt in for testing on your projects. So we should provide, rather than just blanketly running tests against all contrib projects, it would be good if we had an opt-in, opt-out. And if it was, drop this file in a GitHub Actions folder in your module code base, I think that's probably realistic for people who want tests. But that's an amazing idea. I hadn't even thought of it as being like something that we could extend to contrib that way. I was just thinking, like, I want to leverage some of those other things that are out there, and I haven't had a lot of success with that. But yeah, putting stuff in there is even better.
Yeah, we are planning on leveraging this one. Indigozala and I have both been testing it. I can't quite remember what it's called. It's something that groups together the GitHub Action results, because what we're going to do is multi-thread the test runs in order to get the runtime down. And then we use a marketplace plugin to GitHub Actions that once the tests are completed running, it takes those 6 parallel runs and then compresses them down to one check mark on the results page, so that instead of seeing 6 things that are all like 1/3 of the run on PHP 5 and 1/3 of the run on PHP 7, 6 times, it just says, functional tests. Did they pass or not? Check or not. And so, yeah, there's other things like that. Yeah, those marketplace add-ons could potentially be our solution to, PHP CS validation and stuff like that too.
Yeah, Joseph was working on one of those too, and I've got a test module I was working on today where I was trying to do other GitHub actions. I discovered my old PHP CS test. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot we were working on that. But yeah, Joseph has made a lot of progress on that too.
Yeah, I'd love the thing of those marketplace add-ons. They're really not doing anything you can't do yourself. It's just like reducing the amount of like YAML configuration you need to have on a per project basis, because it basically just like abstracts that and puts it all into some other place. And then you provide another YAML file that is much smaller, that is just like the very specific configuration of how you want that add-on to run. And so that would make it so that maybe we don't need to bother with all the work of finding the PHP CS standards, installing PHP CS, like all of the steps would all be skipped from our perspective, and we'd only be saying like run on these file extensions or in this directory or something like that.
What I'm looking for is GitHub actions that affect GitHub.
Oh.
And those are a lot trickier because that's the part that isn't documented, is like the triggers are all there, but the actions, like the responses, like for example, I don't know if we talked about this today. I've talked about this today in chat. I don't remember if I talked about it out loud. Is we have new contributors that we like want to automatically get added to like the documentation team so they can manage the issue queue as soon as they add a comment. And we had some crazy bot that used the GitHub API to do that like way back in the day. But it seems like the perfect thing for an action to do because it's like it triggers on comment and it affects that repository. And so there's a way that you can provide an action along with the site key that says I'm authorizing this person to do whatever to this thing. But because that action is affecting GitHub, that's very poorly documented. And so I'm trying to figure out how to do that part, but it seems so easy. It's just so simple. It's right there.
Yeah, you're right. It is all right there. I'm not sure. Is there something that fires on comment though?
Yeah. And you can have it, whether it's just comment or comment on the pull request, and they can do the same thing. You can have it do on like issue creation or open pull request. Like there's a whole bunch of different triggers. They're all there and clearly documented, but trying to get it to then like grant this user permission to do X or add this user to X group, that's the part I'm struggling with.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a great idea, Jen. I would love to have that because that would make it so that
auto label, like there's a bunch of things that I've been wanting to do that's just like GitHub on GitHub actions.
Yeah, because the problem we had with our old script is that it required our server ci.backdropcms.org, and what we were doing is we were receiving a webhook from GitHub that said, hey, this user posted a comment, and then it would go over to our site. It had no script on it that would talk to GitHub and say, hey, add this person to the group. But yeah, that would be wonderful if it would all just live inside of GitHub itself. We'd probably put it in the backdrop issues repository as a GitHub action.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Trouble. So I will consult our experts.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if we could loop back in our original author of all of that scripting stuff, Jared Bittner, and be like, hey, remember when you did that thing for us like ages ago? Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do that all with GitHub now these days? And that's the sort of thing that might just be interesting enough to spark his interest and be like, hey, maybe.
So I created a specific action that was titled like GitHub action thing because I couldn't find the previous issue about the bot not working anymore. And I was like, should I mention him in this issue? And I'm like, or would that just be annoying? And I like went back and forth on it where I'm like, maybe not. I decided not to. Maybe I'll go add a comment.
Yeah, you should totally just
okay.
add him in. Yeah. My opinion. All right. Let's see. All right. Well, that's it for, let's see, 119.3. We don't have a whole lot of things flagged. I guess there is also this issue that Olaf raised last week. We have a regression with some icons displaying on the /admin/config pages that we made an accessibility change to order the headings correctly on the dashboard, and that caused our CSS for the icon display to get a little funky in places. I don't have the issue number for that on hand, but we'll call out as a 119.3 item. Like, we definitely want to get that fixed. It's a small problem, but it has high visibility and looks bad. Okay, let's see. Next up, we also are continuing to work towards.
Wait, so we've been talking about trying to figure out how to improve our dev meeting stuff. And one of the recommendations we had recently was to stop the recording after we talk about all of the stuff that's specific to this week. And if we're going to start talking about things that we're just talking about, to remind us to work on them rather than things that have updates. It might be better for people who are watching the video if they didn't have to see the same list every week. And so I tried to put a end broadcast line in the middle of this agenda. I don't know if we need to do that. I just wanted to call out that, like, right now is the point where we would stop the recording if anyone wanted to do that. Does anyone have feelings on that? No. Okay.
There's still a couple more new things. It's the same issues, but there's some updates on them.
Okay.
Could be kind of interesting, but yeah, we're actually almost out of time because we started late, so it wouldn't actually be a bad idea to stop anyway.
Well, do you want to just do a quick rundown on the new things? Okay.
Yeah, one last thing I'd like to bring up is full PHP 8 support, which I guess is actually still a 119.3 issue. Yeah, I tossed it out there last week as something that Luke might want to take a look at, and he posted a comment saying, "This sounds great. How do I do that?" And so that issue, the meta issue for PHP 8 support, is issue 5076, and our final objective is to get all tests running on PHP 8. Backdrop actually runs on PHP 8. I think Jen had a client that was like, "Oh, it works fine." I mean, PHP 8 was just totally didn't actually encounter any problems, but then something happened. Jen, what was the outcome?
Something else was wrong, like he had a typo in his MySQL password or something, and he spent half an hour working on it and reverted a bunch of the server updates because he didn't know what it was. And then when he found out what it was, he's just like, whatever, it's fine.
He thought it was PHP 8, but his credentials were just wrong. Yeah.
Typo. But we did decide to bump his beta site to PHP 8, so we're going to keep using that as a test site for a while.
Well, I posted to this issue 5076 what I do, which is running tests with Lando and PHP 8, and you can find the configuration there on how to do that. Indigozala posted a follow-up though saying, "Gee, if we had GitHub Actions, you could have GitHub Actions run the PHP 8 tests," which is totally valid. And so she also suggests that if you would like to, what you can do is, instead of working your PHP 8 patches off of the base repository, use her branch that uses GitHub Actions. And when you file your pull request, the test will run on GitHub Actions and can be against PHP 8. And so the suggestion she has is that if you want to prove that your changes are validating PHP 8, you can build off of her branch. Or if you just don't want to run them locally, you also could like apply 777 patches and then use her branch to run the tests against GitHub Actions. Again, kind of emphasizing the importance of what the work that she's doing. Like, if we just had GitHub Actions in place already, then it would already be running against PHP 8, and this wouldn't be such a runaround. But it's a great suggestion as an optimization if you don't want to wait for your own computer to run all the tests.
Yeah, so since you had suggested it last week, I actually tried to test it and downloaded the latest version of Backdrop and upgraded landed a PHP 8 and everything seemed to work great. so
Yep.
it was, I needed to run the tests. So it was at the, it wasn't a question of just getting it going. It was a question of not having any failing tests or.
Correct. Yeah. Because like 99% of Backdrop works on PHP 8, but there are like 20 failing tests out of the thousands that we run that it's just like this specific thing in this situation fails. And so it's very, I'm not sure that I could call them small things, but it's very specific things that have PHP 8 failures, and they're not obvious. They're only the test coverage will really kind of flag everything that needs to be addressed.
Okay, so the doable thing is running the test suites, finding those things and trying to fix them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got it. All right.
That's exactly it. Okay. Well, with the hour upon us and our late start, we seem to have no choice but to end the meeting, even if we wanted to recap the other things for the 1.20 milestone. So I'll pause there, see if anyone has any last things they'd like to bring up. No? Okay. Well, yeah, we'll call it short then today. Yeah, I guess I will say once more, it is the month of August, so this is our last month before Code Freeze. That will be September 1st. Exact date to be determined as we approach that. That is on a Wednesday, though, so it seems likely that that will not land on a holiday. So yeah, we'll zoom on through the month of August on to 1.20.
Okay.
And we'll call it a meeting.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.